I'm now delighted to be joined by this evening by Clare senior Camogie player Eimear Kelly, who plays our hurling with plays our Camogie. I mean with Truagh, Clonlara. I suppose Eimear, first of all, I suppose you started off the year as an intercounty sort of team under your local club mate there, Ger O'Connell there from Clonlara, who's the manager as well. I suppose it was all sort of cut short. And obviously with the global pandemic that we had, and you went back to the club scene and you went back to your local club, and obviously you had the full championship with your club, and obviously got to train fully with your club, got to train with all the younger girls and teammates and stuff like that. I was speaking to Roisin Considine, the Clare ladies footballer, and she told me she actually enjoyed that for once, being around the place and getting to know the young girls and getting to train with them on a continuous basis, on a weekly basis. And she said obviously she felt there was some merit to club being on before championship. I suppose you've been on the intercounty scene now for a good few years as well, Eimear. Was it a nice change for you? I know the circumstances weren't ideal, but was it a nice change to have club before intercounty for once?
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I suppose, like, thinking back, I think it really was. It was something totally different, obviously, but like even thinking back in the summer, it was very enjoyable. Like you were saying there, to be able to be around for the whole thing, and maybe not just the 3 weeks leading up to championship, when, you know, sometimes you can be tired coming back from the county team as well, and have to try and get a week off, and then you're under pressure to get straight back into championship training with your club within the space of 2 weeks of getting knocked out of the All-Ireland series. So, like, definitely, I think it could be something that should be looked at in the future. It benefits everyone in terms of county players get to enjoy their club fully, but also for the club players to be able to train with a full squad for, you know, majority of the summer, majority of the playing year, instead of literally those 3 weeks, especially with the way I suppose our county training has gone, and player welfare, and that we aren't expected to train with the two teams throughout. So I definitely thoroughly enjoyed it, to be honest, and it's great to have everyone, including club players, being able to play summer hurling as well, instead of, you know, being pushed out into, normally we'd be, you know, still probably only on our second round in Clare at the moment, like, and be looking at a semi in October, and then, you know, your county final is mid to late October. So in terms of playing wise, and then as in weather wise, and then also in terms of actually playing with your teammates, yeah, definitely enjoyed it, and would like something, a shorter season, definitely, for maybe the years to come. So definitely something to look at, hopefully, yeah.
And I suppose, Eimear, in terms of the actual, I know you probably had an intercounty program still when you were with your club in terms of a gym program, but were you ever sort of able to forego to put the intercounty to the back of your head for even a month or two while you were involved in your club? Was there something that you completely was able to take your mind off, or was there always an inkling, well, I got to sort of have to this gym program to compete, or this sort of dietary requirements? I suppose you, as an intercounty, I'd say you're amateurs in profession, but intercounty scene is very much professionalized these days in terms of what you eat, in terms of what you weigh. Everything is scrutinized over. So was there any sense that you could sort of let your hair down, as the saying goes, while you were back at your club?
Not really, with Ger O'Connell in charge. He's, I'd say, since the lockdown, Ger has just been all eyes on the 14th September and for his sins. But I know it was good, like, in terms of I suppose naturally you kind of, you know, I suppose you play for a reason as well, and you're, you know, it's not, I wouldn't see it as a chore to be kind of training on your own and trying to improve yourself on your own anyway. So I suppose more than anything, I found anyway that we had programs and, you know, individual programs to do over the lockdown, especially at the start when it was like the real lockdown, I suppose, where you couldn't leave. And I suppose a lot of us were very grateful for that, and it was a way to keep in contact with one another. And we had small WhatsApp groups with 3 or 4 of us. We were always checking in, and, you know, we had about 5 kind of trainings to log, say 3 running and 2 home gym every week. So we were kept tipping over. some weeks harder than others. So I suppose looking back, not really, but then as in don't really take your foot off the pedal much, but you've more time to do your training. So I didn't find it a chore anyway. It was kind of part of the day, and it was nice to have someone to give you something and say this is your plan from from start to finish laid out every week, which was great. Something to focus on. But I suppose on the other side of it, then you did kind of maybe be able to enjoy club a little bit more in terms of when that did actually start, you were just fully with your club. And I suppose then it probably did go to the back of our minds, when you're playing with like the Truagh jersey on your back, that's the only team you're playing for. You're not really thinking about Clare, and you're kind of, only focusing on your own teammates. You're not too concerned about, what Laura Mack or Claire Hare is doing with Eimear at the moment. So I suppose it was nice that way, definitely, to maybe not be juggling the two. But in terms of training, I suppose we did keep tipping over from start to finish, really, looking back now, which was great.
I suppose, Eimear, I saw your game against 6 Mile Bridge below in the Cracklow GA grounds. I was at that. I was covering that game. And in terms of the Camogie, you could see all the club players as well. They sort of benefit from playing in good. I remember that day. It was a beautiful day below in Cracklow. The sun was beaming and the pitch was in immaculate sort of condition below there. I suppose to play championship action on sort of grey pitches and stuff like that. I suppose the quality of the Camogie Championship this year, I suppose, benefited because the club championship was a higher quality, and no doubt that was seen in how close the semi-finals were. And in terms, I know you got to the semi-finals yourselves. So I suppose in hindsight, it really improved the club game and such. I know it was narrowed down to a tight schedule, but it was week to week. You sort of knew what you were doing, and there was no sort of waiting around to organise challenges or waiting around for games. It was ticking fast, so it was probably one training or two training max then into a game, then another recovery session, probably then one training into another game again. So I suppose that sort of structure to championship is always beneficial rather than waiting around between a month or 2 months for the game. And I suppose as an intercounty player, you're back in the same boat. For club players, I suppose that wait sometimes can be very annoying.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably one major benefit. Like Jeannie, the Clare Championship was so competitive this year, which was brilliant. Like you had, the likes of Kilmaley really making themselves seen. You had Kilkishen, like that other group was just like, there was brilliant matches in that as well. And big shocks and upsets. And then, as you said, the semi-finals then were so close, like extra time there between Kilmaley and Eimear. Like Joe, was absolutely brilliant to see, like, and maybe see a few more players as well really shine with their club. And I think it's a real level playing field in terms of the way the club championship was for everyone. You all had the same amount of time, you all had your full access to your players, and maybe again, it's definitely something to look at for the future. And like even seeing, in the intermediate as well, and seeing like the likes of Fecal win there the last year, like that's absolutely brilliant as well. To see them coming through, and we'd be dependent on a few of them as well for the Clare team. So like overall, you'd like to see people kind of coming back buzzing instead of coming back from their club championship and going into a kind of dogged November in late nights and stuff like that with rain. At least you're somewhat training for championship, and it's kind of still all hurling all the time, which is, at the end of the day, is the training that we want to do. So like you said, they're taking fast is, it's brilliant. Like and we'll see now how the county championship kind of holds up without the dogged preseason before it, when it's just summer hurling and summer championship and that kind of fitness. Like will it improve the game even in bad conditions, maybe in October, November? But yeah, like it'll be very interesting to see what way it rolls out and how impactful that club championship has been.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Intercounty Championship now, and I suppose you're combined into 3 weekends. You're in a group with Dublin and Tipperary. You're out it's 3 weekends, 17th of October to 18th of October, 24th and 25th of October, and then the October 31st and the 1st of November. I suppose you're in a group of 3, while the other groups, you're in group 3, while the other groups I'll just mention the other groups there to our listeners now. In group 2, we have Limerick, Waterford, Kilkenny and Westmeath, and then in group 1 we have Offaly, Wexford, Cork and Galway. So I suppose I'm just looking at it there in one sense that the group of 3 probably has that extra time, if you're successful in that group of 3, to prepare for a quarter final, if that's where you end up, or stuff like that. While the groups of 4, I mean, they're practically straight out the following weekend. So is that as far, so after coming off a club championship campaign, I suppose a group of 3, I suppose it makes it really cutthroat from the off that the first game is absolutely crucial, because you lose the first game in a group of 3, you're really up against it. It's virtually it's 90% you're basically biting against the back's wall. So yeah, I suppose groups of 3, are you sort of, would you prefer the group of 4 getting that extra group game, or the groups of 3? I suppose hindsight, it has that advantage given that you might have that bit of recovery time if you come through it.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I suppose, to be honest, when I saw it, I was fairly happy. You know, like with Tip and Dublin, be a very competitive group between the 3 of us to see what 2 get out. But I suppose at the moment we're kind of straight back into challenge matches already against the other teams. So you've time to, I suppose, see everyone first of all, and maybe get an extra, like there might be a lot to be said for getting an extra challenge game in, a competitive challenge game in the week before you play your championship this year, and, you know, really be kind of chomping at the bit by the time, say, Tip comes around. But to be honest, overall, like I'm happy enough. You know, I would have taken anything at the start of the year. So to have 2 championship games, I think, is absolutely brilliant. The way it's fallen for us, I think our first game got moved back to Saturday the 18th, which means we have a break in the middle, and then we're out the 31st as well. So, you know, that'll all help as well. To be honest, when it comes to it, I'd say having an extra match or not, who knows, will it be, you know, will it benefit or not? It's always that kind of funny one with what team has been, you know, sometimes it can be good to get momentum, and if you win the week before, you're on a buzz for the week. Yeah. And, you know, whereas sometimes the break mightn't be so good. So, but I suppose that's all, you know, out of our control as well, really. But overall, no, we're really looking forward to it. We, you know, enjoyed the league campaign. We made a bit of progress there. So, you know, we've nothing to lose. Like we're confident, and we're looking forward to it now, going into it for the next month or so.
And I suppose, Eimear, you mentioned progress, and I suppose it's fair to say when Ger O'Connell came in, Clare Camogie was on a bit of a low. It endured a few, not to say anything against the previous team or management, it's just the way things turned out, I suppose, that there was a gradual sort of decline in terms of, I won't say effort or a thing, it's just the results. It's the results business, and the results obviously didn't go to plan. But it was since Ger's come in, there's been a sort of steady sort of climb up in terms of Clare Camogie, in terms of not only if the performances have been of good standard, but the results are coming now for Clare Camogie. While in the past, maybe on the previous bench, where Clare were game and competitive, they probably were always on the wrong side of maybe 1 or 2 points defeats or hard luck sort of stories. The hard luck stories seem to be gone out of Clare Camogie at the moment. And is that in hindsight due to Ger O'Connell's man management? Has he instilled a bit of extra belief and self-determination, or what do you think has been a change? Because there definitely has been a change in terms of I wouldn't say the attitude, but in terms of the dressing room, the mentality, there seems to be a sort of more sort of I say die-hard, gritty sort of mentality in this Clare Camogie group now at present, that maybe they're a bit more steel, maybe is the word, than what was in previous years.
Yeah, I suppose probably numerous factors, really. We definitely were unlucky. Just thinking back there to a couple of years ago, literally the wrong side of a point, I suppose, and whatnot. But I suppose it's a combination of loads of things. Like, we've loads of players that have gone through Ashburn and UL. It's really strong Clare cohort in there at the moment, and for the past maybe 5 or 6 years. And like you've the likes of Claire Hare that's just finished college now, so I suppose she's kind of maturing into herself as well. And the likes of Ciara Grogan and a few coming through, Alana Ryan, like they're all kind of growing up, I suppose, whereas maybe a couple of years ago we might have maybe depended on the youth too much in terms of, they might have only been 17, 18, when really that should just be getting an introduction, at some levels into championship matches, where maybe a small bit too young, and, maybe a couple of players left a couple of years ago. But I suppose now we've them players who have a real graw for Camogie, I suppose, have had a taste of winning with UL for the last, 5 in a row there. The last day, like there's the last year, there's been loads of us involved with that. So I think that's been massive. And then, I mean, definitely Ger coming in, I suppose his probably biggest thing was creating a culture more than anything. So just kind of a fresh approach to everything. He's, really professional. The backroom team are very hands-on. He's, some like brilliant people in there as well for, every role that you could want. We have it at the moment. So I suppose it's a lot of the little things that we finally ticked off, and now we kind of have a consistent team from 2019 to 2020, and we have that management as well. So I think it's everything, and like you said there, it is just kind of, at this stage we've nothing to lose really, and go out and try and play with a bit of confidence, and we're training hard on creating a game plan, I suppose, like a style of play. And it was maybe a tiny bit there last year, but since the league and the training up to the league, I mean, that has helped an awful lot in terms of figuring out how we want to play as a team. And I suppose it took a bit of time to figure out what players we have and things like that as well. So I think that's probably a massive thing, is everyone's singing off the one hymn sheet in terms of management and players on the pitch and off the pitch. And like training is thoroughly enjoyable. There's always good atmosphere there, and it's very one in all in kind of thing, very supportive environment. So I think all them things, happy players, there's a lot to be said for that as well. So I suppose kind of being a combination of everything, we're probably a bit to go still, but I think the biggest thing is getting our squad to stick together and keeping our management over the next year as well will definitely help kind of build that culture, and hopefully, the performances kind of keep coming, and then the results hopefully will follow as well.
Yeah, and I suppose Eimear, I suppose for many years, I suppose the stalwart, the poster girl of Clare Camogie was Chloe Morey. I suppose an icon figure in terms of Clare Camogie, and what her attributes, what she gives to Clare in terms of her scoring, most days averaging 10, 12 points a game against the best teams in the country, All-Ireland champions. And it was always seen that Chloe would have to hit double figures if Clare were to be victorious. That's sort of gone now. There's an awful lot of this Clare team now are capable of hitting 3-4 points from play. There's more spread of scores. It's not so dependent on Chloe Morey shooting out the lights out as it was in previous sort of years. That everyone is taking up the hat, as I say, in the task in terms of providing scores. Not like yourself, for example, chipping in with 3 or 4 points a game. Not gone is the day where it's on one person's shoulder to hit or 8 or 9 or 10 points and expected to do that game in, game out.
Yeah, like absolutely. I think that kind of goes down to, like I said, our style of play and our game plan and the culture as well, that every person on the pitch is as important as the next person. And I suppose it takes a bit of time to start backing each other and using the ball better. But Chloe is back in with us now as well, which is absolutely brilliant. And like you said, has done so much for Clare Camogie both on and off the pitch. But I suppose, like moving forward, no team is really going to get anywhere with one person, calling a spade, I suppose. So it's figuring out, how to use our players the best. We probably don't have the biggest team in the country. So, kind of working to our advantages has been something that we are trying to work on at the moment. So by doing that, I suppose at training, you are given, your wing forwards, your full forward, your corner forward, you're trying to get them all on the ball, and you're kind of expecting everyone to to play their bit as well, which is good. And it's, I suppose, sharing the responsibility, and that comes from the backs to the forwards as well. And, you know, again, it goes back to singing off the one hymn sheet. And, you know, unless we're all on the same page on the pitch, you're not giving the forwards the opportunity anyway to shine, I suppose. So I suppose it all feeds in really, kind of a whole team approach, as I suppose what you said, maybe not dependent on the one or two people.
Yeah, I suppose Eimear, in terms of your squad, you're very different in terms of the Clare senior footballers and the Clare senior hurlers. You're probably more like the minors, minor hurlers and minor footballers in terms of dual players. You have dual players in your senior squad, while the Clare senior hurling panel at the moment doesn't have dual players. The senior footballer doesn't have. I know in the minor there's a whole rake of dual players in the minor football and minor hurling, and they're going to be out in contention. And it's a compact sort of fixture list this year. It's sort of so condensed. I suppose in terms of, I know for ye, for example, Niamh O'Dea is such a crucial player. I mean, she's the Gary Brennan of Clare ladies football. She's touted in that sort of sense, but she's been a big addition for ye in terms of Camogie. I know Carol O'Leary then, it will probably be known as a Camogie with Newmarket, but a really good footballer, and has won a county championship with Kilmehel as well. So how is that going to be hard? Have girls have to make a decision now, given the circumstances with COVID-19, given that maybe that the championships are going to be so condensed? Or do you think is it a case where Ger and James Murray have met up and discussed the arrangements already, and with Niamh and Carl, and I think they're the only two, if I'm not mistaken. There might be a few more.
Yeah, well, at the moment, I suppose we just have Niamh O'Dea and Shifra at the moment, are dual players. So I'm not sure about the management, to be honest. Wouldn't be my role, but yeah, I suppose that is the toughest one. I know obviously with the lads that the club championships didn't continue after county final stage, and I know in Leinster that the Camogie club Leinster semi-final isn't until January. But for whatever reason, Munster is continuing on. It's poor enough planning. I think it makes it very hard for the county championship. Like we're missing, I suppose, Clare Cahir as well from Aina. Aoife Keane would have been involved as well. So they're, obviously still training with their clubs for the next 2 weeks. Which, at a very exciting time for them as well, going into a Munster semi, and please God, getting into a final as well. And same with Nod with the football. So I'm not really sure, being totally honest. I suppose you'd have to, you have to back your club as well. And, I know if I was in that boat, I'd definitely be absolutely buzzing to be continuing on with the club. But I suppose on the other side of it, then it's just hard. It's hard to train. And I suppose sometimes because the likes of the Camogie will be on, I think the final is the 11th of October and our first round is the 18th of October, which is the week after. And I'm not 100% sure the dates of the football, but I'm sure it's kind of similar as well. So, you are missing players there up until the week before championship, but due to no fault of their own, obviously. And you haven't played with them then since March or February. So, like, it is a major challenge. I think for whatever reason, Leinster and Munster is different as well. Doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense, but scheduling clashes again, it's tough. Like, there's always something every year, and I'd be lying if I said it wasn't stressful, and it doesn't take from it, because it does. It's not fair on players or management, but I suppose you shouldn't be put in a position where you have to make such big calls. But I suppose I'm not sure really, and I'd say a lot of people aren't sure yet because it's so new. It might be normally the league that would just clash with a club championship, and you kind of can work around that, but championship obviously is do or die. So it might be, maybe harsher calls might have to be made. I'm not sure in terms of training and whatnot, but I suppose regardless, if you're training for, Munster competitions, you're obviously training hard yourself anyway with your club. So, there's the other side of it as well, but I'm not sure what the solution is really, to be totally honest.
And I suppose that Eimear, this week we've seen We've seen a spate of intercounty retirements in across the GA circles, not only in football and hurling, but in camogie and 80s football. We've seen Colm Kavanagh call it a day after the club scene not probably coming back. And in terms of your own squad, I know you said Chloe Morey's back in with you, but from the squad that you started out with before COVID-19 kicked in, have all of those came back to G with with one or two additions, or have one or two players after the club championship said, listen, I have work commitments, I have family, I probably the club is taking its toll on me, I'm just going to call it a day for the rest of the year, or has everyone came back in good spirits?
No, we've everyone back plus a few more, which is, you know, a major positive for us. And you would be thinking, you know, like when you get a break from county as well, and you know the commitments of club and county, like it was only there, you know, around March or April where you really realized how much time you're putting into it. And Joe, you can understand people kind of taking a bit of perspective, and you know, might be at various stages of their lives as well. But I suppose for us, we're delighted. We have everyone back, thank God. So, and like I said, plus one or two more, which is a major positive, and kind of adds to the whole positive kind of outlook that Clare Camogie have at the moment as well, which is great. So, no, we're lucky enough with that sense. I'd say, you know, especially with clubs doing so well, and the likes of Ina and, you know, Fecal in the intermediate, and then you have the Banner Ladies, like they're all really strong clubs that would hopefully progress maybe to Munster final stage and beyond. So, you know, when you're missing all them, maybe on a certain day of the week, you know, you definitely do need your full squad and everyone else to be there, to be getting good trainings in. So I suppose that is a major positive in Clare at the moment. So I can't complain on that front, thank God.
Yeah, I suppose, Eimear, two last questions. I know I'm stalling you here. It's a second last one question. So I suppose this weekend, this year is supposed to be 2020, the year of women's sport. And I suppose the last week it's been all over social media. I know you probably don't want to talk about another county's fortunes, but what has happened to the club situation below in Carr and Tipperary? I know Ashley Maloney is coming out speaking very much, and she's probably not one to talk about, but she feels very saddened by the situation of having to play two county finals within the space of 24 hours in hurling and football. And I suppose she feels just that wouldn't happen, and if it was flipped on the other side of the can, if it was let's say, for example, if Éire from Clare were in a senior hurling final and a senior football final, they wouldn't be expected to play both on the following day. Can you see her outrage in terms of that, and just in terms of maybe that she feels that obviously the two teams involved obviously have nothing for the foreseeable future, that it could be pushed back, and just the determination of the fixtures committee saying that it had to be finished on a weekend. This is the weekend we set, that's it. No, do you think that common sense obviously should prevail in that situation?
Yeah, like it's absolutely crazy, to be honest. I saw a lot of it on Twitter, right, and Facebook. Like totally see the girls' point of view. Would have played with a few of them in UL. And you know, really dedicated players as well. That, you know, there's always something. That's all I can say. There's always something with fixtures every year, and it's always just happens to be something to do with the women's side of it. And you know, I think like it's grand saying that you know, that they'll kind of suck it up and play it in for a finish, but it isn't right. Like, and it's aside from everything is player welfare, then you can't have the girls enjoying, if they win or lose, can't enjoy spending the evening with the team, or you know, the celebrations or commiserations, whatever it is, the Saturday, because they're expected to perform the Sunday. Then, you know, like aside from even player welfare wise and injury wise and everything like that, like you also have, like, why are we playing? And especially during the pandemic, like, you know, sport is meant to be such the shining light, like, and you know, it shouldn't be causing any stress really. And like the fact that they still haven't heard any response, or sorry, they did get a response and it just had to go ahead. There is a severe lack of respect there. And you know, I would definitely think that it wouldn't happen in a male in a male, teams, it wouldn't happen, and it also has never happened. So, and it has happened many times with the girls. So I think, getting as much kind of people to speak out about it is very important, because unless we do, and like you said, with the year that's in it at the moment, with it being 2020, it will continue, and it has continued for years. And like, if all it takes is a bit of extra communication, a bit of extra organization at the start of the year, getting player reps in, or whatever it is, I think it has to be done going forward, because aside from that, they have the 2 county finals coming up where they should be absolutely buzzing, and looking forward to big enjoyment in the club. And instead, they're expected to speak out themselves on Twitter, and doing interviews and whatnot, which is brilliant to raise a bit of awareness about it, but it also takes from the week. So I think definitely fixtures committees have awful lot to answer for, and just open communication, and less of this direct responses, I suppose, of kind of no negotiation at all. And that is the case in higher up organisations with Camogie Association and LGFA, as it is with county boards. So yeah, I'd be totally on the girls' side with that one, and really hope that they do sort it out and they come to some agreement that's fair to everyone.
Yeah, I suppose lastly, Eimear, before I let you go, I suppose this championship, the Intercounty Championship, the club championship was called the COVID Championship. The Intercounty Championship is the COVID Championship as well. There is no form. There's no form guide. Anything that's been done in the league is probably, you might be consigned to maybe 2 or 3 years ago. It's history now at this stage. So you can go on league form. So this championship, there's no... Everyone in here in this championship will fancy their chances. Everyone's a dark horse. You can't underestimate anyone or take the eye off the ball. You're obviously going to be playing in winter conditions, and some of the games that probably suit the style of some teams more than other sort of teams. So, but predominantly in years gone by, Cork would be seen as the be-all, the almighty, and whoever probably took down Cork would eventually wind up as winners. Is it fair to say now there's going to be an awful lot of surprises and shocks, and maybe some results you think in this championship you're thinking, oh, I didn't perceive that, and maybe a team that has a good victory the first day out could be very much brought back down to earth the second day out, and you could see some teams with going trajectory up and down sort of trajectory, and only until we get to the semi-finals will we have any idea of maybe who are the likely champions will be. The group stages, I say, will be an absolute mire, I suppose, in terms of there's no form, there's no guide, and there could be some big shocks. Some teams are expected to get out of the groups, mightn't get out of the groups, because some teams obviously will come with game plans. Weather conditions adverse might affect it as well. So I suppose in terms of Clare Camogie, there's an awful lot of opportunity there in this championship. But I suppose likewise as well, if you're not at it from the word off, as the saying goes, you could be packing your bags fairly quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you actually covered it there. Like, between everything, if the club is anything to go by, genuinely anything could happen, I'd say, which is brilliant. Like, and I was even saying that about our own championship in Clare, that anything could happen, and that will really drive people on next year as well in their club teams. And you maybe teams that you might have underestimated, you certainly won't underestimate them next year. So I suppose be looking for hopefully the same. And I suppose when you're thinking of shocks, like if we're making progress, it probably would be seen as we'd be hopefully ones to cause a bit of an upset this year. Who's to know? But I suppose in terms of that, you'd like to think maybe exactly like you said, it is an opportunity for us to really just kind of go hell for leather with it now, and really that there's anything could happen. And I suppose all we can do really is target our first game, which is Tip on the 18th of October, and hopefully the weather will be somewhat okay still by then, but you wouldn't know with that. But so all you can do, like anything, is take every game as it comes and let the other groups worry about themselves. And hopefully it will be a bit interesting, and we'll see who will we have even in quarter and semi-final stages this year.
On that note, Eimear Kelly, an absolute pleasure talking to you this evening as we preview the intercounty scene for a Clare perspective in terms of the Camogie Championship this year. Thanks for giving your thoughts and insights on a variety of subjects. And Eimear, best luck to you and Ger O'Connell and the rest of the Clare senior Camogie squad. Hopefully it's a productive and an interesting end to the year that was 2020. Thanks, Eimear.
Perfect. Thanks a million, Jay.